It's draft season. Marcus, I know you are a draft nut. My roots are college football. In some ways, the draft is home for both of us. We are passionate about it. We love it. And we're going to be doing more and more of this on the podcast, in our weekly videos. Super excited to get going on the draft stuff. So the season is over. I just want to say in our text chain the other night, if y'all didn't listen to me and pound Bama, that's on you. Okay. It was a very bad week of NFL football. It was a good Monday night in college football. At least I had that. So real quick, draft risers. We're going to be getting deep into positions and diving into this stuff, team needs and all that. But as you look at it today, and a lot can change, what are a couple of draft risers that you're looking at that the everyman or woman can target and say, these are people I should look out for?
Yeah, so I'm going to go a little bit off the national radar because we're not going to talk about Trevor Lawrence and Devonta Smith and all those guys. How about a mid-major? How about Zaven Collins from Tulsa? This is a 6'4", 260-pound linebacker that can absolutely fly. We saw him win a game on a pick six earlier this season.
Cost me money. Horrifying. Yeah, one of the worst losses of the year. Overtime pick six. +5 dead. Horrifying.
It was great. And I think he's going to be a fantastic guy in the NFL because he can blitz, he can cover, he can stop the run. What did you see from Zaven Collins when you saw him this year?
I think I would say that the average college football fan is already well known, and this was a great defense. I think he's one of the elite defensive players in all of football. And
because he's from Tulsa, I don't think he's all that well known yet.
That's true. No, you're right. Because he's from Tulsa, he will largely be dismissed. But I think that's a great, that guy is phenomenal. And I think his numbers, what he runs is going to be huge for him. But just pure watching wise, he was one of the best football players, period, that I saw all year.
Yeah, I think he was somebody who early on in the season was viewed as, maybe a potential top 100 pick. And now, Adam, I think he's a lock to go inside the top 25 of the draft. So just a remarkable season by him.
Agreed. All right, who else you got? I love it so far, by the way. I'm in. Thumbs up so far.
All right, my next guy is Jaelan Phillips, a defensive end from Miami. He wore number 15 this year, actually replaced Gregory Rousseau, who opted out. Phillips is a guy who transferred over from UCLA, sat out the 2019 season because of the transfer rules, came in and absolutely dominated. Now, there's some injury concerns here. He's had quite an injury history, but in terms of on-the-field production, this might be the best defensive end in the draft, and I don't think a lot of people know of him yet. Once we get into when all the Twitter scouts and everybody's starting to watch him, I think they're going to be really impressed. I think he's like 90% of Nick Bosa, who we saw come out of the draft a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and this was the number one high school football player in America.
Right.
This was a guy that was hugely coveted. The whole thing with UCLA, that was strange. The other thing that strikes me about him, Marcus, is he just plays really mean a compliment. If he can control it. There were times in games this year where he had to be soothed because he plays that. But if you're a defensive coordinator or a GM, you're going to look at that and want to invest in that. But in terms of just style and aggressiveness and just gifts, I think it's untapped. If you can stomach the injury stuff, and I agree with you, the guy could be an absolute monster.
Yeah, I think even with all the injury stuff, probably still a late first rounder and somebody we really need to keep our eye on over the next couple months.
Yes. All right, so give me one more.
How about Christian Barmore, a defensive tackle at Alabama? Didn't start at the beginning of the season, even at the end of the year, still rotated in quite a bit, but he's having a Deron Payne type of rise at
Great
Alabama
comparison.
where stats aren't fantastic, but over the last 3 or 4 games, just an absolute monster for teams looking for these hybrid defensive tackles that can play the run and get after the quarterback. I think he's a fantastic fit and would not be surprising at all in a weak defensive tackle class if he's the first one selected in April.
I think Alabama didn't have the normal list of well-known dudes, the Paynes that you mentioned, but the Ashawn Robinsons, you go down the list.
Jonathan Allen.
Jonathan Allen, exactly. You go down the list and they lack that guy. What became apparent at the end is this was the guy. And I think as that defense got better, and they played a great game on Monday night against a really good offense. They were short field. It was not that was a situation that didn't they were put in some bad situations. I thought he played great. And Marcus, the other thing, the reputation for Alabama has been like they get a lot of mileage on guys, and I think that's gone away. Derrick Henry, by the way, he seems fine with mileage, but this guy does not have a lot of mileage. I think it's a great one. I want to throw a couple to you real quick, and then we'll move on to our guests. So we've got so many to do. Jeremy Ruckert, the tight end from Ohio State, I'll start with the title game. Was like one of the top tight ends to come out of high school, hasn't done a ton in terms of pass catching, is widely considered maybe the best blocking tight end in the country, hasn't declared yet, could come back. But that catch he had, that was like, if you're a blocking tight end and you have a one-handed catch in the national championship, the scouting world changes for you, right? And I'm wondering if you've watched much of him and just your thoughts on him, because he's just a big body, would be a great fit to complement a team with maybe a wide out that you'd stretch, or a tight end that you'd stretch out to wide out quite a bit.
Yeah, this is actually a really good tight end class when you have Kyle Pitts, who could potentially be a top 10 pick, Pat Fryermuth from Penn State, Brevin Jordan from Miami. And I think right after those guys is where he fits in there, because that's the range, that second, third round range of tight ends that can do a little bit of everything. That's what teams are looking for. So that's a great name. I love it.
And then the last one, and I've got an interesting connection with him, is Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech, the offensive tackle. You had a couple of the two best offensive linemen in the class opt out this year. And so it became an opportunity. I met him at Fork Union Military Academy. I spent a couple days there. It was fantastic. And at the time, I remember, you end up at Fork Union Military Academy, grades usually, right? But everybody has a story. It's been very successful for pipelines like Ohio State, Va Tech. Great players end up there. I remember watching him in a practice at this military academy and just thinking like, oh my God, this guy looks the part. And yet I couldn't judge it because of the competition in the moment. He had like one of the best seasons, I think, of any player in terms of improving their draft stock, because went from sort of an unknown to a really coveted guy, no?
Yeah, you need to watch the tape on him. Big number 77. He can get out. He can move. I was watching a game yesterday where his ability to get out in space and just create running lanes and just move piles. Just fantastic. So it's already a really strong offensive tackle class with Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, who opted out. But I think Darrisaw right in that teen range. Would not be surprising if he's a top 20 pick and maybe ends up as the best offensive tackle in this class. There's a ton of tools there and a lot to like. I don't see any way he gets outside the top 20.